131873, our open line number here. What did you make of Adam Batt and his comments? He's backing the governor, David de Kretser, his comments in relation to climate change and the fact that climate change has a lot to do with these floods. I'll find out exactly what he did say and read it to you in a moment or two. See, what worries me is this. He quoted 1 in 100, 1 in 200 year events. Now, he obviously doesn't listen to this show because he would have heard the SES say it isn't a 1 in 200 year event, but we say that so that we get protection to that level in case it's worse than what we believe it is. Anyway, why have an intelligent, reasoned debate with moderate language when you can scare the you-know-whatski out of people by saying the sea's about to enter their attics? Got an attic? No, I haven't got an attic either. What's it have? How do you get an attic? I want one of them. 131873 is our open line number. Now, let's have another look at this debate. The creator of a terrific Australian climate change blog is about to talk to us. His name is Simon Turnell. We'll give you all the details about where you can find all his info in a moment or two, but he's on the line. G'day, Simon.
Well, it started a while ago when I really discovered that the mainstream media in Australia, and not just in Australia, but all over the world, has kind of made up its mind on climate change.
Yeah.
They plug a particular line, the consensus line, and there's a lot of information out there, which is important information, which the general public never get to see. They never get to hear about it on the media. They never get to read it in their papers. And I was kind of getting frustrated with this, and I was taking it out on my wife, so I decided to start a blog to get it all down on.
Well, I bet she's relieved that you've done that. You're right about that consensus thing, because it is pushed that the majority of the world's scientists concede that the impact of man on the planet via CO2 emissions, etc., has led or is leading to a significant shift in our climate that will see island nations disappear and the like. And look, I'm a little bit like you. I just think that the debate has been, and it wasn't until I did some research, no doubt like you did, that you do get a sense that there are other very highly respected scientific operators around the world who disagree with that theory. But it's very hard, you're right to say, isn't it, to get mainstream media, particularly some areas of it. The ABC would be number one on my list, followed closely by Fairfax,
yes,
to even
absolutely
concede that there is anything like a balanced scientific view.
Well, that's absolutely right. Certainly, as you say, ABC, Fairfax rarely run anything which counters the consensus.
Yes, indeed.
And but I think the internet has played a huge part here, because now individuals can go onto the internet and they can read firsthand, peer-reviewed scientific papers by highly respected scientists that challenge that consensus, and people are entitled to make up their own minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've had the Victorian governor come out and basically say that climate change is the reason that we've had these floods, catastrophic floods in Queensland, and the drama continues here in Victoria. Was he entitled to make that comment? I guess from a political point of view, he's meant to be, I think, isn't he? He's an appointed independent governor, and I'm uneasy about him making that claim, whether it be for the side I barrack for or the other. But let's get to the factual part of it, I guess. Is what he has had to say reasonable?
Well, look, I'd like to say first of all that I think it's staggeringly insensitive and wholly inappropriate for politicians and people in high office, public office, to rush to blame climate change for these floods, especially given the fact that the rescue and recovery operation is still underway. Families are only just beginning grieving for lost relatives, and the anxious waits for those who are missing. I think for anybody to make that kind of claims at this time is wrong and inappropriate.
What about factually? Is there any credit? Can you give any credit to the claim that, in fact, to remove the sensitivity argument from it for a moment, that, in fact, climate change is responsible for this?
Well, look, the truthful answer, and I'm not going to fall into the same trap as the governor by saying, no, climate change is not to blame. But But I think what we have to do is there'll be plenty of time following these tragic floods for inquiries and investigations into the causes, and I'm open-minded about it. It may well turn out that there are elements of climate change which have affected the rainfall patterns, but I'm open-minded about that, and I think everyone should be, and that's what we don't see. People rush to judgment, and I think that's a big mistake. I should say that, of course, that David de Krester has got a long history of pushing this climate alarmist agenda. I'm sure you're aware of it, but I've just got a quote here. In April 2009, he advocated for a carbon tax, and said that government should, legislate to change people's lifestyle. But what he really meant is legislate to change other people's lifestyle. But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
And the Governor General Quentin Bryce similarly has made very public statements about climate change. She helped launch the Garnaut report, if you recall, back in October 2008. So, both of these supposedly apolitical figures. I mean, they should be apolitical. That's part of their remit.
Yeah.
Have made very political statements, and the question is whether that's compatible with their office.
Well, and that's I think a very important question. I'm not sure that it is, and I think what's worse is once you open your gob and utter words, you're entitled to be questioned. I think by the public who pay for your existence, and isn't it the point yesterday that his staff at Government House said that's it, the comment's been made, no further interrogation is allowed? Well,
that's right. I mean, they shut up shop,
yeah.
And I think if you are going to make political statements and go outside what your real responsibilities are, I mean, as representative of the monarch in Victoria, he should be above politics, and it's inappropriate for him to for Quentin Bryce to make politically charged statements.
Yeah. If man-made climate change was the reason for the event in 2010-2011, what do they blame for the flood crisis in Queensland in the 70s or in the late 1800s?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I think it's one of the issues that people struggle with is geological time and the timescales involved here. I had a commenter on my blog actually write to me and say that people in Brisbane before these floods, they looked at the markers for where the 1974 water levels were, and they simply could not believe that the water reached those heights.
Yeah,
and I think it's a human nature that we just don't have the ability to deal with, the timescales that are involved. For example, flood records for southeast Queensland and for Victoria go back 150 years at most, back to the mid 1800s, I think. This is just a blink of an eye in geological terms, and the reality is that floods like this have been occurring unobserved throughout Australia for thousands, probably millions of years, and yet it's very hard for people to not think that they are living at the most important time in history, and that what's happening now is more important than anything that's happened before.
That's an excellent point. Really a good point. Look, it's well worth the read. Visit the website AustralianClimateMadness.com. You can follow Simon's blog on Twitter and all over the place. Appreciate your time very much indeed, Simon. Interesting to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
Simon Turnell there. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't he? Particularly that point at the end. We think this is history now. This is not even a speckle on a speck of history, but we all think, what happens now? That's most important. Anyway, interesting to talk to Simon Turnell. 131873 Alan at Broad.